The wealth of Bible prophecy to be found in the book of Revelation is absolutely amazing. And here to continue our talk about Revelation is author, lecturer, Bill Salus. Bill, we've got a lot to talk about today.
We do, and we set up the prior show we had for this particular show, getting into some of the real details,
right?
Especially what's going on with the false prophet, what's going on with the cashless economy, the Antichrist, the mark of the beast, etc.
Now, on our last program, we went through a lot of Revelation 13, and there's still much to say because I wish we had more time, but there's so much to talk about, so little time. Let's take up exactly where we left off.
Okay, yeah. So why don't we read to preface where we're going to go, Revelation 13, if you're there in your Bible.
I'm here.
Why don't we pick it up around verses 13 through 17, where the false prophet, he comes on the scene, and now he's getting active. He's doing signs and wonders. And it's all now he's pointing toward the direction of propping up the Antichrist.
So you have the first beast, and then you have another beast, and verse 13 of chapter 13 says, by the way, 13:13, what about that? He doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men, and deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had the power to do in the sight of the beast, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, which had the wound by a sword and did live, and he had the power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And so we have this image that we're talking about here, and that's worth a lot of discussion.
Exactly. So just by recap from the prior show, the false prophet is now, we pick him up around the middle point of the tribulation. He is the propaganda guy for the Antichrist. He's a key religious figure on the scene at that time. Now, meanwhile, it talks about the beast that was wounded and healed. And earlier we talked in the show before, in the earlier parts of Revelation chapter 13, that it seems like he gets resurrected, and that's when the world starts to follow him. He goes into Jerusalem at that point, kills the two witnesses, goes in and stops the sacrifices and offerings in the temple. The abomination and desolation has happened. Now, meanwhile, the false prophet is starting to move forward with the satanic program for the midpoint of the second half of the tribulation. And what he's going to start to do right now is what you said. He's performing signs and wonders, and he's telling, let's make an image of the beast, and they start causing people to worship the image of the beast, and that if they don't worship the image of the beast, they would be killed. And then he goes on to say that he's going to then, at that point, for those that are willing to worship the beast, cause them to take a mark upon their right hand or on their forehead, so that it says no one can buy or sell unless they have this mark. So they can't participate in the economy of the false prophet, and namely the Antichrist, which they'll need to do to survive right at that point in time. But so in essence, some people, and we have to think about, well, what is he doing there? In other words, is that a technology that we're talking about? What is this mark? What is this image? Who is the false prophet? Some people think he could be a pope or something like that.
Now, in chapter 13 of Bill's book, the final prophecies, you've gone into great depth and detail about currency. And I mean, the subject of currency is very broad, and it's changing rapidly, even as we speak today. What we used to call currency just isn't anymore. That's what this is all about. It's about control of the global population through not just a number attached to someone, but through the use of currency.
Right, so the key clue we're given there is that no one can buy or sell unless they receive this mark. And this mark is given to someone sort of as a loyalty for them worshiping the Antichrist.
Right.
Which I like to make that point, because some people think maybe the vaccine that's being developed for COVID-19 may have something to do with the technology for the mark of the beast, and there may be other things, and they get concerned that if I get a chip implant or I get a tattoo that serves as a tracking device, whatever, have I just lost my salvation? Because people who take the mark of the beast, they end up in the lake of fire and they face the wrath of God. So it's a real bad thing, but it's actually it's sort of a rewards, if you will, for actually worshiping the Antichrist. So in other words, it's not, you just don't get some tattoo on your forehead, your right hand and go, oh no, I've just lost my salvation. It's actually a volitional choice to worship the Antichrist, and now you become part of his economy. It's a right to have to get into his economy where no one will buy or sell without the mark. So, but what exactly is that now? Is that a technology? Or is it just simply a mark like, okay, gee, I am a member to some economy, I can now go buy and I can use fiat currencies or cash or credit cards or debit cards or whatever, my smartphone? Or is it actually a technology that is so advanced at this time that does more than just buying and selling, but actually can track things and monitor people's consumer behavior and give them other privileges and things like healthcare and education and things like that? Those technologies exist today, Gary.
Yes.
And so that's why a lot of people, when they teach on this topic, they take it to the next level. It's got more to do than just buying and selling. It's got tracking ideas and things like that as well. And also there's a whole religious section to it too. How come a person goes to the lake of fire just because he wants to buy or sell, buy milk for his children, or, sometimes that maybe it's got an enhancement where they can see better. Their scientists are working on those types of things too, superhuman enhancements and things. There's some religious aspect to it as well, but let's go to the monetary aspect for now. Okay, so when it comes to the mark of the beast, we have, I believe what's developing right now and it's being accelerated by the COVID-19 virus is this race to get cryptocurrencies, to replace cash, to replace credit cards, debit cards, and to actually get into a digital form of conducting monetary activity.
Yeah, now if I could just ask a question here. We've all sort of quit using cash. We use our credit cards. But a credit card is not cryptocurrency. You use that term, cryptocurrency. So where do we go from, what's the next step up from a credit card to what you're calling cryptocurrency?
Okay, well, let me just briefly define a cryptocurrency and its wallet, if you will, which would be a blockchain technology. And I'm going to quote a little bit from my book because it's written well and it's easier to read. Cryptocurrency is a digital currency. It's not cash. It's not credit card. In which encryption techniques are used to regulate the generation of units of currency and verify the transfer of funds. And it operates independently of a central bank, which, by the way, is kind of a problem for central banks now. Like, for instance, the Bitcoin, it's become a problem because it's independent of central banks. They can't control the money supply. So this got entered. The Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency, as an example. It came out at the end of 2008, 2009, at the end of the global crisis. And I think it was in 2017 that things skyrocketed and exploded. If I recall, it was selling for somewhere between 17,000 and 19,000, something like that, for a Bitcoin. Now it's come down from there at that point, but it's still a Bitcoin. But the central banks cannot control it. So here's how I think the progression goes. It's a currency. It's involved in a blockchain technology, and I'm going to get to that in just a second. Now, with respects to the first thing you got to think about if we're going to go into a digital cryptocurrency is we got to say goodbye to cash, okay?
Right.
And other fiat currencies. And we're seeing a trend going in that direction. I'm going to read a few headlines. This is from the Economic Times in December of 2019, at the end of last year, 2019. Quantum leap is the headline. End of cash is near. Cashless currencies are in vogue. And here's what the subcaption is. The case against cash is clear. Expensive to print, difficult to track, prone to theft, and an enabler of corruption. Digital money will lead to greater financial inclusion, helping unbanked populations. That's a whole other topic. There are a lot of people that don't have bank accounts, don't have any identification forms and things like that too. So we move from there. Here's an article that came out in the Town and Country in January of 2019. Is this the end of cash? Will the coming paper currency apocalypse, your money no longer be good here or there or anywhere? And what it goes on to say is, actually, it might seem we've already gone a good ways along. Swipe technologies like Apple Pay are taking off as people use person-to-person apps such as Venmo and Zelle. Other technologies involving things like microchip implants, fingerprint scans, and facial recognitions are eliminating the need for phones and smart watches. Well, let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Gary, would you hold out your hand for a
Well,
minute?
one of these, a smartwatch, you hold that over a sensor and you pay your bill.
That's right. So we went from the 50s where you'd put a credit card down on a carbon copy, slide it across, and you get your carbon copy in the 50s. In the 70s, you had the implementation of the debit cards, okay? Now we're racing towards the digital environment with the digital dollars, the digital wallets, the cryptocurrencies, and the blockchains. Even Visa, this is a headline from May of this year, 2020. Visa files patent for cryptocurrency systems to replace cash. Visa International has filed for a cryptocurrency system patent that is meant to replace physical currency, the system which utilizes both central banks and commercial banks. See, now I told you there was a concern about central banks and commercial banks, central banks of countries. They're incorporating them with Visa now. They realize they've got to bring them in. You can't just have a random Bitcoin running around out there. And it leverages a private blockchain to improve the payment ecosystem. Now we're talking about a blockchain technology. So Visa is already getting involved in this sort of thing. Now, and also we talk about central banking. Countries are now getting involved in this. It's almost like a race to the moon again, but it's a race to get the better Bitcoin among countries to have control of the monetary supply. So Sweden, headline Sweden, this is in the Cointelegraph, February of 2020. Remember, this is all relatively recent. Bitcoin came out, and then Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook came out and said he wanted in 2019 to put forward the Facebook cryptocurrency. It's going to be called a Libra. So they're developing that as we speak. So that all of a sudden triggered all these countries now want to get into the hunt for cryptocurrencies. It says Sweden is testing its new central bank digital currency. That's called the CBDC, central bank. And that's called e-krona. China rolls out, this is a headline from Wall Street Journal in April of 20. China rolls out a pilot test of digital currency. China's central bank has introduced homegrown digital currency across 4 cities as part of a pilot program, making a milestone on the path toward the first electronic payment system by a major central bank, getting into the central bank things like this. Now you also have the USA's involved, searching for it, the UK, France, Russia, Israel, Canada, India, Japan. The list goes on, and they're coming into the fold more and more as we go. So, but how soon might this happen? Here's an article from the Bitcoinist. Central bank digital currencies may arrive within 3 years. Now this is interesting because it gets into the COVID-19 thing.
Okay.
The subcaption. Deutsche Bank analyst Marian Labor told Reuters that the central banks that recently formed a group of these CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, would probably issue the first general purpose digital currency within about 3 years from now. The rush is caused by the current COVID-19 panic. So it's accelerating this move away from cash, away from debit cards.
So when the money marketeers saw the glitch in the market caused by COVID-19, they came up with alternatives, and we're looking at those alternatives right now.
That's right, because cash costs money to print. It can be laundered. It can be counterfeited. It's dirty. You can carry viruses on it and that sort of thing. So
Absolutely.
There's all kinds of reasons to go away from that, as similar with debit and credit cards. They're getting more and more antiquated, but you got to put them in credit card readers. Who knows who's touched what, and they can also be a carrier of viruses.
Now, Bill's book, The Final Prophecies, and we're going to tell you in a moment how you can get a copy. The Final Prophecies deals in very practical terms with a number of questions that I'm sure you haven't thought of. And these stem back to Revelation 13, 16 and 17, where everybody, small, great, rich, poor, free, bond, gets a mark in their right hand or their forehead, and no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And I want you to comment on that, because there are 3 things there: the mark, the name of the beast, and the number of his name. And you talk a lot in your chapter 13 about those 3 items.
I do. Matter of fact, it does talk about those 3 things that are involved in the cashless society. And there's a way, if you study the Greek language, where it actually seems to be saying they are all part of the same thing. So it's the mark of the beast, or the number, or the name of the beast, or the number of the beast. In other words, they're all adequate substitutes of one another. I actually put forward a scenario in chapter 13 where I actually talk about someone going and enrolling to get the mark of the beast, getting a digital ID, puts them into that system, because they can't be in the system of China's cryptocurrencies or America's cryptocurrency. They got to be all under his system now. He's going to harness all this. He's got to take and capture all those different systems that'll be in place. He's got to put them into his system. And I give it a name in the book. So they enroll, they get a digital ID, all the records get transferred because everything is paperless at that point in time, et cetera. And how it actually has his numbers, maybe a prefix, the 666, like a credit card, for instance. Visa has its own prefix, MasterCard has its own prefix. It identifies with his system. The system is in his name, the name of the, and you have to have a mark. And when you enroll, all of these three things sort of come together. It's one alternative. I'm not saying that's exactly what those three things mean. It could mean it's a platinum club. I take the mark, and all of a sudden I'm a good guy. I get to get the number of his name. I mean, you know.
And I might add, that's not the half of it, because Bill goes on to describe also other aspects of the mark that are even more damning, because he that receives the mark is forever excluded from salvation.
Well, that's the real key there. And that's why you and I have had this discussion before. You've had Billy Crone on your show. You've had Ellie Marzulli. Ellie Marzulli brings the forward, well, what is it about the mark where the grace and mercy and forgiveness of God now is not eligible to that person that is now marked? What is it about the mark that does that? How do they become unredeemable? Billy Crone brings it forward. It could be a DNA alteration. Marzulli suggests that too. It very well could be. And there's work in those areas right now that could alter a man's DNA for superhumanism, for human enhancements, to see better, things like that. So there's a whole other religious aspect that I've got in the book, and it's actually the next chapter, not chapter 13, but chapter 14.
And, by the way, you're going to discover a lot of information. It's one thing to just lightly discuss these matters, but to go systematically through and look at all the details, that's where Bill shines, because he really digs deep, and I think you'll really find a lot of information that's valuable.
Looking at the world through the lens of Bible prophecy is our main focus at Prophecy Watchers, and everything we do is to tell the world that Jesus is the only answer for these troubled times. The events we see happening in our world today are undeniable proof that we are living in what the Bible calls the last days. Words like cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, the false prophet, and the Antichrist may be new or confusing to you, but the Bible has much to say on these subjects and how they fit into the world's future. As does our guest today, author and longtime friend Bill Salus. Bill began his relationship with Christ later in life after finding himself intrigued by a 2,700-year-old book that predicted the future long before it happened. Of course, we're talking about God's Word, the Holy Bible. Recently, Bill has produced some tremendous material on the Old Testament prophets and the book of Revelation. With your gift of $40, we'd love to send you Bill's latest book and the DVD, The Final Prophecies. When you request the Final Prophecies package, we will include Gary's teaching on the last trump absolutely free to you. These resources will help you understand all of the things Gary and Bill talked about on today's program and so much more. If you're not familiar with the work of Bill Salus, you are in for a pleasant surprise. When you bless our ministry with a gift of $75, we're going to send you all 4 DVDs in this exciting End Time series: the Now, Next, Last, and Bill's new DVD, The Final Prophecies, along with 3 free bonuses, and we'll ship them to you for free anywhere in the USA. Wouldn't you love to know more about future events predicted in the Bible? An attack on Israel by Russia and Iran, the destruction of Damascus, the mark of the beast. So don't wait. Call us at the toll-free number on your screen or visit our online bookstore at prophecywatchers.tv. Every time you sow a financial gift into this ministry, you are helping us tell the world that Bible prophecy is coming to pass and that Jesus Christ is coming soon. So stand with us today.
Well, I think you're convinced by now that you probably need to look at a copy of Bill's 4th book in this series, and that's what we're talking about today. Can't talk about everything, but we can touch on a few subjects, right?
Right. You know, we also get into the bowl judgments and things like that. I wanted to just read a few more headlines about the cryptocurrency because it is coming at us like a freight train, and it will highly likely be an advanced technology that is used in the system of buying and selling. It'll be digital, it'll be cryptocurrencies housed in a blockchain scenario. Now, a lot of your viewers are going, what's a cryptocurrency? what's blockchain and that sort of thing. So that's why I think it's a little bit important time, because folks, you can use this as an evangelical tool. My wife was talking about these types of things to my grandson, who's very tech oriented. He can see this stuff coming. They're not running around with cash in their pockets, these millennials and these younger people. So they're adept to moving right into this kind of a system. You know,
Yeah, everybody carries one of these, right? Everybody carries one of these. That's perfectly capable of doing business right now. Think about the future.
but you can lose one of these, but you can't lose something upon your body.
Right.
So therefore, it becomes more smart to move that from there to here.
Exactly.
Your smartwatch is right by your right on your forehead. Now, Gary's not going to be around to take the mark of the beast, because it only happens at the mid part of the tribulation,
Right.
when it gets offered. And we are pre-trib rapture believers, meaning we won't even be here for the first half of the tribulation, let alone the mid part of the
Right.
tribulation.
Exactly.
So listen, I want to read a headline from the Wall Street Journal that came out of May of 2020. Blockchain may offer solutions to fighting COVID-19. Now, we're dealing with this pandemic right now. We're still in the midst of it as we're doing this show. The Blockchain Research Institute participated in a virtual roundtable to discuss the potential use of blockchain technologies for public health solutions. The report identified 5 key areas where blockchain could be deployed to fight COVID-19, as well as future pandemics: identity, health records, shared data, just-in-time supply for chains, sustaining the economy, a rapid response registry for medical professionals, and incentive models to reward responsible behavior. Blockchain is more than just financial housing for cryptocurrencies. But let me explain what blockchain is, because a lot of people are going to have this question. I know I did. I'm going to quote from the book. Blockchain, which is alluded to twice in the article that I just read to you, is defined as an electronic monitoring system in which a record transaction made in cryptocurrencies are maintained across several linked computers in a network. So it's not just one, it's linked computers network. The block represents digital information about a transaction, such as the product, the transaction, the participants, the date, the price, etc. The chain is the public database where the block information is stored. Blockchain. Transactions stored in the chain from the block. Blockchain is, in essence, the new computerized cash register. It becomes necessary because cryptocurrencies are entirely digital currencies, and unlike cash dollars or plastic credit cards that can be placed in a physical wallet, these funds cannot. Therefore, the blockchain technology keeps the track of digital dollars and digital wallets involved in digital transactions. It's digital, digital, digital. And that's, I think, that the technology the beast is going to use. Now, it says here in another headline of Political in April of 2020. Now, these are all articles, recent articles. That's why it's moving so quickly. Is the coronavirus killing off cash? Tech firms see the opportunity they've been waiting for as shoppers and businesses recoil from paper money. Here's another one right here from Bitrates. July of 2018, the new report finds cryptocurrencies could see mass adoption within the next decade. Mass adoption within the next decade. A new report titled Cryptocurrencies Overcoming the Barriers to Adoption, and published by Imperial College London, determines that cryptocurrencies could become a mainstream global payment within the next decade. But it's actually coming in. Here's the one that's real big. Deutsche Bank says cryptocurrencies could replace cash by 2030. So, within the next decade.
It's been my experience, Bill, that when people are talking about tech, and they say, well, this is going to happen in 10 years, you can just about cut that in half, or maybe less. Things happen very quickly in high tech.
Well, we went from the credit card and the old tape strip to the debit card, all within
Right.
2 decades. And we're talking now, we're into this thing 30, 40, 50 years later, and this stuff is coming at us, like I said.
So we have
racing
mass
at us.
communications, mass marketing, mass record keeping, all boiled down to a simple 3-part system. And it involves the name of the Antichrist. And it's scary to think how close that could be.
That's right. So, I mean, this chapter is one of the lengthier chapters, and I'm not going to read the whole chapter and all the headlines and that sort of thing. But as you can tell, we go headlines, we lead the reader through the course of events,
Right.
Say goodbye to cash, hello to cryptocurrencies, how they're going to be working through the blockchain scenario, how they have multiple purposes. And I'll just sort of summarize with this. The newer electronic methods of buying and selling are being formatted in a way that could facilitate not only a cashless society, but also offer global citizens with better access to education, travel, healthcare and vaccines, voting, banking, housing, and a host of other business and or family-related benefits. In fact, the headlines I've been reading to you have been putting these things forward. I get into what about the ethics of it. I get into how could it be used to enslave people? Could it be used to track people? Those are all headlines that are coming off the press right now. People are concerned about these things and talking about these things. Over the last 1 to 2 to 3 years, Gary, I put this fresh material into the book in this chapter to show people that this is highly likely the technology that's going to be adopted in the very near future for the Antichrist to have a cashless society. We will be saying goodbye to cash ultimately. We'll be able to have everything he wants to know and control. Mankind will have that right available to him through a technology.
And the speed with which this is moving is unbelievable. We're talking now, and of course I believe in the pre-tribulation rapture of the church, and the clock is going to speed up so rapidly, I think, in the very near future. In fact, I believe it has already. As we make this program, Bill, the old systems of Earth are breaking down. There's global revolution. There's global militarization. And there are signs in the heavens as well, on destabilizing weather, all kinds of destabilization wherever you look, if you will, a kind of what the Bible would call shaking. And I think we're there.
Well, that's our concern. Gary and I have had these conversations, tongue-in-cheek for a while about, we might be a lot closer to the end of the timeline than people really imagine. And, I know that everybody thought with Hal Lindsey's book, The Late Great Planet Earth, in the 70s, that the rapture was supposed to happen at that time. And he wasn't date setting. But the thing is, we are that much closer now to these events happening. And so there could still be some time, but they're talking about in 10 years having mass adoption, maybe as soon as 3 years, of this type of currency, changing from the whole system of medium of transaction, monetary transactions. So there's a sense of urgency is what we're trying to say.
And think about it. Late Great Planet Earth, 1970, and we're here in 2020. That's 50 years later. What a ride we have had in the last 50 years. It's amazing where we've gone, and everything that's happened opens just another little glimpse into Scripture and into Bible prophecy. It is happening.
It is absolutely. Now, okay, we're going to kind of wind down in the last few seconds here. They take the mark of the beast, Gary, and all of a sudden now these unbelievers who are starting to worship the Antichrist, here comes the bowl judgments. And we're told in Revelation 15:1 that the wrath of God is completed through the bowl judgments. There's 7 bowl judgments. The first one, loathsome sores hit all the people. And this, you find these in Revelation 16. Loathsome sores come upon the bodies of the people who take the mark of the beast. Then you get the sea turns into blood. The second bowl, the rivers and streams of water turn to blood. Now people can't drink. There's a concern about that. Then they get scorching heat with the fourth bowl. And what do you want to do in scorching heat? You want to drink, right? That sort of thing. But the big one is the fifth bowl. And the fifth bowl, and we'll leave it at this, it says the throne of the beast is struck and darkness permeates throughout his whole kingdom. Folks, you got to read what happens when that happens and how I connect that into how the commercial system gets affected by that and that sort of thing, and how now all of a sudden they want to come and fight God at Armageddon.
Thanks, Bill. We appreciate you being here. I'm Gary Stearman. Hey, we're watching. You keep watching too.